One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Today, I have a super juicy topic that I feel like over the years, I have covered this exact same thing probably 50 times, but it's one of those that in 450 plus episodes, we cannot say enough, because as a brand new podcaster or a seasoned podcaster, I still see you making these same mistakes over and over and over again. And I feel very confident that I can call you out like this because I do this too. Okay. So it's like level playing field. It's not just me like preaching at you that like, oh, I'm better than you. And no, I do this too, which is why it's also a reminder for me to make sure that we're all doing this and holding each other accountable, because the top mistake that I see podcasters making, content creators making, business owners making is what we're talking about today. So let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach you how to start, launch, and market your content with confidence. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of content creation, this is the show that will help be your time-saving shortcut. So let's get right to it, shall we? Okay, welcome back. Crystal here today, and I am so excited about this topic, because as much as I have been kind of like preachy and like, this is what we need to talk about, like it is so freaking important, because we're talking about marketing, okay? And we're not talking about just general marketing or content marketing or podcast marketing. Like we are really breaking down the one thing that so many of you struggle with that you don't even think about until after the fact, okay? And like I said, I do this too, But once you've adopted this principle today, like never again will you have this issue. I'm going to give you lots of permissions as I do whenever we're coaching and like we're knee deep in a session where I'm just like, okay, we're on podcast therapy. Okay. So if that's the kind of mindset you need to get into today, totally fine. Grab your like comfy pillow, get a cozy blanket, snuggle up, or maybe you're out on a walk. Like let's do this together today because there's some hard things that we need to talk about, but with my help, like hopefully you're, part of our podcast community. We have a free Facebook group. Message me on the podcast, which is a fun new feature that you can do. You can go and send me a text message right to the Profit Podcast on Apple or Spotify or wherever like you're listening on your audio platform. Reach out because you should not struggle alone with this. But this is like, I want to set this up because like I said, I've done this and I see this happening over and over and over again. And so many of you are like, Crystal, why didn't I have a bigger launch? Or why is, my podcast isn't getting the attention that I thought it would as soon as I hit publish, or no one's buying my product, or no one's even looking at my YouTube channel. What can I do? So this is for those of you in that middle ground, like maybe you haven't launched your content, or maybe you have and you're looking to launch your next thing, whether it's your digital product, or maybe you're launching a book, or maybe you're launching something else in your business. That's your next step, because I don't stop launching things. Like I launch things all the time, actually. Like just this year, I launched multiple things. And these are some of the things that are going to help you in your next launch of whatever the thing is. But here's really the key mistake that I see so many content creators and online business owners making. And that is, you put all of your time and your energy and your efforts and maybe even your budget, your money into making the thing that you don't actually tell people about the thing. Do you feel called out? I feel called out, right? This has been my tragedy before. When I first created my very first course, I remember I was like, okay, I'm going to this is all the content, this is the modules, this is the names of it, these are the lessons, these are the videos. Like I spent so much time on the actual thing that I was creating. I never thought about selling the thing. I was just like, just get me to the finish line of getting this thing launched out into the world. And that will be the hard part, right? The marketing will take care of itself. No, that's not how it works. Like I hear you laughing at me, okay? I hear the laughter that is coming from someone that just launched their podcast and they're like, oh no, that's not at all how it worked for me, Crystal. Like you're lying here. But okay, this is why we have to talk about this, because I actually want to lay this out like it's building a house. Okay. And if you've never worked in construction, like I feel like I have an advantage on this conversation. I worked in construction for a few years. I worked for a huge general contractor, a big builder. Plus, I grew up with a dad who was a plumber. So like I've been around construction my life. Like I've seen things get built, from having a for sale sign on a piece of land to all of a sudden it's like coming soon. And it's like a gas station or a restaurant or a hospital or like whatever it is that is being built. But I really want to take it down to the foundation, like no pun intended, right? The foundation of building a home, because we can all relate to that, right? We've been in someone's home, even if we don't own a home ourselves. We have been in a house and we can recognize what goes into it. So let's just say you are scouting for a piece of land, right? So you find your piece of land, you're like, this is the property that I want to build my house on. Then you have to hire an architect to draw up your blueprints and have this home designed. Is it going to be 1 story? Is it going to be 2 story? Is it going to be a ranch? Is it going to be like, that's kind of like my knowledge of HGTV shows stops there. It's like about all I know. 1 story, 2 story, a ranch. Yeah. Is that it? Because other than that, I don't know. But then after you have your blueprints, Then what has to happen? You need to kind of have like the model of like, okay, well, where's the door going to, is the front door going to go here? Is the garage going to go here? You have to do the actual like schematics on your piece of property. Then you start doing the dirt work. Then you're going to start pouring the foundation. You got to have those huge concrete trucks come in and they're putting out the foundation. Then they have to level it. And before they do that, when they're doing the dirt work is actually when they start doing the plumbing. I can't even tell you how many times, maybe I shouldn't say this. He doesn't have his own business anymore, so it's fine. The statute of limitations is gone. He doesn't do this anymore, but I would go to his jobs and drive the tractor when he was doing a rough-in. This is my dad. Like, I remember being a little kid, being on the tractor with my dad, and he was like, okay, like, we're going to lift this up. It was like the backhoe or the excavator. I don't even know what it was, but couldn't even drive a car, yet here I am on this super heavy piece of machinery. So if you're an insurance agent and you're like clutching your pearls, like, oh my God, the audacity. I know. Okay. I was a little kid. It happened a long time ago, but you have to do all that dirt work, then do all of your plumbing, all the things that have to happen. Then we're pouring the concrete. So I got a little out of order, but you get what I'm saying, right? There's steps. There's a lot of steps involved. And this may take days or weeks to make this happen. You can't rush these things. It's not like you can say, I want to throw it all together and have a house in a day. I mean, you could, but is it going to last? Like, that's not the kind of house that I want to live in. But the next steps, and I'm looking back and forth to my notes because I wrote these things down. The next one is working with a design team to see what kind of attributes do you want to have? Like, where are your stairs going to go? If that wasn't like fully laid out in your blueprints of like, okay, like, are you going to have a round staircase? Are you going to have, a door here to your closet? Are you going to have this? You're going to have that? Like all of these things that may have been like kind of in the backlog of like, okay, we'll answer those questions as we build out this house. And then you're going to actually see the walls go up. And by walls, I don't mean like actual like drywall and paneling. I'm talking about like just you've driven by houses, right? We live in a house that it was a newer home. And when it was getting built, we didn't live here. We didn't live in this area. So we actually couldn't see it as it was getting built. But I can't tell you how many of my neighbors that I have met and they're like, oh, we walked through your house when it was just walls. And I'm like, well, that's weird. Everyone, I've met like 5 or 6 neighbors. They were like, oh yeah, we walked totally through your house whenever it was just like the studs and there wasn't anything there. And I was just like, I kind of felt like it was an invasion of privacy. I was like, wait, hang on. You've been in my house before it was like technically like all moved in. But anyway, you know what I'm saying? Like you can see through all the walls. There's just boards up. That's another big step in building a house. They've like installed the stairs and maybe the doors are in, maybe they're not. Maybe you don't even have windows installed in your house. But then you start working on the insulation and the drywall, and then they put the fixtures in, and then maybe they start painting and putting the flooring in and doing the tiling or whatever kind of flooring, the carpet that you want to put in, like, carpet upstairs, like no carpet downstairs. Like that's like next level for me is like, if I ever purchase another home or if we renovate a house, I'm like, no carpet downstairs. No, and preferably no upstairs. Like that's where we're going on my journey is like, I live in a very small cottage on a lake with just me and my husband and like 7 dogs. That's like where our retirement dreams, like that's what they're made of. And, once all the kids are out of the house, that's likely where we're going to live. But the next part are just installing those major appliances. Maybe you have to go and like coordinate like, okay, we decided on these last fixtures. Like, do these appliances go together? Do I want to have matching, an oven and a stove and a fridge and maybe, the laundry, like do I want all those to match or do I not care? Like go get me the bargain hunt, like deals. Like these are all decisions you still have to make. And then what about the roofing? And then you have to stage your house, right? Like, you're not just building this to live in it. You're building it to sell it. Okay. This is like kind of flip of the switch. Cause maybe this whole time you were thinking, oh yeah, like my dream home, maybe some of y'all got lost in like the HGT world of like, oh yeah. And then we could have shutters and we could have a courtyard out in the back with this beautiful garden. Well, come back to me. Okay. Like come back to what we're talking about today, because maybe you're already tired and you tuned out. You're like, Crystal, that was a lot of steps. Like that was way too much stuff. You lost me when you started talking about blueprints. That's okay, because what we're bringing it back to now is that is the same amount of work that you are putting into your content before you even get to pricing and competitive analysis and actually getting to the point of selling a house. You have to do all of these things, just like a podcast. You got to pick a title. You got to do your artwork, decide, is this a solo podcast or an interview podcast? Is it going to be long form or short form, video, no video? Like, you have to make all of these decisions and get into action to make them happen. You are exhausted. You are freaking exhausted by the time that launch date rolls around. You're like,
being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants.
Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
can't somebody else just do this? Can't someone else talk about it? Like, I've been behind the scenes creating all this stuff, and I'm just ready to sit back and watch the virality, like just take it off, like just upload it into an algorithm and let it go on its merry way and get me millions of downloads, thousands of views, and make me an overnight celebrity. You can say it. You can admit that these have been part of your dreams, because these have been my dreams too. Anytime I create something, I'm like, this is going to be the time. This is when it's going to happen. I know that the algorithm is just going to love the way that I design this perfectly in Canva, and I grab the right fonts this time, and I have the right code on my website, and my graphics look good, and my colors are popping, and all the things. But at the end of the day, so much of this could have really been building the momentum that by the time I launched it out into the world, it kind of took off on its own and really had some legs to run with, to where all I'm doing is saying, okay, let's just keep the conversation going. And that's really what I want to talk about. So while all of this is not as complex as building a house, like, whew, thank God, right? Like, it is not that complicated. There are 4 ways that I want you to start marketing your podcast, your YouTube channel, your product, whatever it is, while you are in the process of creating it. So while you're building it, there are 4 key things that you can do to ensure that when it launches, when you press that go live, when you put your book on Amazon, when you go live with your sales page and your next digital course, that you have sales, you have buyers, you have listeners, you have an audience. And so these are the 4 ways to make that happen. So if you're writing notes, this is when you can start writing them. If not, if you're driving or you're running or doing whatever, then these are going to be in the show notes. So make sure you go check them out. The first one, sharing the behind the scenes. And all of these things are free, by the way. Can we throw that out there? Like, everything I'm sharing here with you today, all of it is free for you to do. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you, go buy a bunch of ads, do all these other things. All of these things are free. And this is a smart way for you to market your content or your thing while you're building it. Share behind the scenes. What are you doing? Are you launching a podcast and you just bought a podcast microphone and a boom arm? Well, take a picture of it. Like, snap a selfie while you are in the middle of, setting it up. Maybe you're like, this feels kind of weird, but it feels exciting and it feels fun. Like, take a picture. Take a picture of that. Because 1, you're going to love to remember that. I love that I snapped a picture of my very, very first interview. I keep hitting my microphone. Of my very first interview. I cherish that picture. I am so happy that I have that picture. I can share it in webinars that I do. I mean, here we are multiple years later, and I still talk about that picture, and I still remember that day. If I did not have that picture, I may not remember all the details, all the visual elements of everything that happened that day, but I was so happy that I snapped that picture. So if you're in the middle of launching your podcast, your YouTube channel, maybe you're setting up your YouTube backdrop and you're just like, I don't know if this is right. Like, snap a picture. And then the next thing I'm going to talk about, like, we're going to circle back around to that one because yeah, we're gonna circle back around to that one. But I want you to snap a picture, like share the behind the scenes. If you're creating your products, like maybe you take a screenshot of like, oh, I'm laying out my digital product, and you can blur out pieces. I actually love this when people tease things by blurring them out. They're like, oh, they took a screen grab of something they created, and then they like, blur it out, or they pixelate it, or they put like fun emojis over it. It's like, oh, something fun is coming. You're building that momentum as you are still creating the thing. Because remember, the thing isn't ready. Your launch date hasn't even come. Like, it could be weeks out, it could be months out, it could just be days out, but you are teasing out what you're creating. So it's building that marketing like buzz before you even put it out into the world. So instead of when you hit launch, it's crickets and no one knows what's going on, you hit launch, people are like, oh, she shared about that a few weeks ago. Like, I'm curious to see what this is. Or, oh, I've been following along all the things that she's been sharing behind the scenes. I want to go check this out. Like, they feel involved. They feel part of it. They're just like, oh, this is so fun. And actually, while I was, writing my book, so I have a book on Amazon, it's called Start a Binge-Worthy Podcast. And while I was writing that book, I would set up my phone on a time lapse of me writing. You can make this as personal as you want, okay? I'm not going to sit here and tell you to do exactly what I did, but I'm pretty comfortable putting my face out there. Like, I have no makeup on. My hair was in this crazy messy bun. I'm like clearly still in my pajamas, and I have my coffee and I'm sitting there, but I'm doing all my writing, and I did these like time lapses. And I'm so grateful that I have them just for me, but it was awesome to share those little snippets. It's like, okay, I got in today's writing, or I edited another chapter, and I would share that with my audience, and they were just really bought into it. So anytime you can share behind the scenes, it's just another fun way to connect with your audience. But that actually gets me to my second point, which is what I was going to say a second ago, is getting your audience involved in the decision-making process. So if you're setting up your YouTube backdrop or your podcast studio or whatever it is, you snap a shot, share it on social, put it in your email, put it wherever you have a community to give you actual feedback and say, what do you think about this? Do you like my colors? Like, if you're watching on the video, I have my moose background here and I have my books over here that are kind of color coded. I keep wanting to like write something on my whiteboard, but it's just blank for now. But it's like, I could say, oh, what do you think about my moose head right here? Or the P that's here? Like, should I rearrange these or do something different? Or, do you want to see my books here that are color coded? Or do you want me to put my favorite knickknacks up here? Like, you could do what you want with the information that you get back, but it's really just bringing in your audience to the experience. And this could be something like let them help you name your podcast or name your product. I actually see, people do this really well. They'll put out like a few different like webinar titles, and they'll say, okay, I'm creating a training. They don't call it a webinar. They're like, I'm creating a training. I'm creating a product. I'm doing something for my audience, for you. And I want to know, what are the things that you're most interested in? And they give you like 4 options, right? It doesn't need any more than 3 or 4. And then they have their audience vote on it, and they're getting active participation with their audience. Like, that is building momentum to get people excited. Again, you're building that marketing buzz while you're still creating the thing. You don't have to create in a silo and say, oh, it's just me. I have to make all of these decisions myself. No, you do not. You could absolutely get your audience involved. And again, when they see that later, they're like, oh, that's the webinar that I voted for. Or that's the name of the podcast that I picked out. Like, I'm absolutely going to go listen to it. They feel like they have some ownership in what you're creating, and it's just a fantastic way to get them involved. So that is number 2, is getting your audience involved in the decision-making process. Now, number 3, I love this one so much. It's telling your audience how they can help you as you're launching. So I've done several versions of this over the years, and I've shared multiple times that I've been a part of some really big book launches. So I have been part of Brene Brown's book launches. I've been a part of the whole Ramsey team, like multiple books that they have launched over the years. I'm part of Amy Porterfield's book launch. I've been part of Marie Forleo's, like Jamie Kern Lima, like Jordan Dooley, like all these people. I could just keep going on and on, that I wanted to participate so that I could see behind the scenes. And one of the things that they did so well, all of them collectively, was really adding in what the customer or the listener or the participant could do to help them. Because yeah, maybe one of the prerequisites was like, well, if you pre-order the book, then you get to be part of the book launch. Great. I don't mind. I was going to buy the book anyway. No skin off my back. Like, let's do this. But the other part of that was they would say, and here's how you can help when the book launches. You can leave a rating and review. You can go like post on good, what is it? I was going to say Good Pods, Goodreads. You could go post on Amazon if you bought it on Amazon. You could, go to Target and write a review. But it was very clear-cut steps. And I actually do this. If you're a profit podcasting student, this is in our marketing module, where we talk about launching, and I actually give you a full template of this is exactly what you say to your audience, like a month before, a week before, the day that it launches, maybe even after your show launches. It's like clear steps that you can send to your audience. And you could put this in a social post if you want to. There's graphics that go along with it. But it says like, hey, leave a rating and review for the podcast because it helps bump us up in the algorithm and it will just help us get in front of more people. Here's how you can share. So maybe people don't even really care about the topic that you are actually talking about for your show. They're interested in what you do for something else, but they don't mind sharing about it. I love when creators love helping other creators. And actually, my good friend Heather Sager, she's been on the show multiple times, but she does this so well. Anytime she's doing a launch, she will explicitly tell people how they can help her in helping get this launch out like to more people. So she will say, hey, if you're a previous client or customer, like please share this to your Instagram story. It's not a big ask. It's not a big ask at all. It's like, hey, go to this latest reel, and she'll like have the reel up there and she'll say, please share this with your audience if I've ever provided value for you. And of course, like Heather's the best. Everyone's always like, yes, absolutely. And then so she's able to reshare what they have shared. So it's like this domino of social proof that really gets stuff out there. And all she's doing is she's leveraging the audience that she already has. So it's like super slick move, but telling your audience exactly what they can do to help you promote is just such an easy, simple, and free way to get in front of more people with what you're creating. And now finally, the fourth one, and this is the one that makes people uncomfortable, but it's why I'm here. It's why I'm here to tell you this today. It's don't stop talking about it. Don't stop talking about it. And just when you're getting to the point where you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot hear myself talk about my podcast or talk about my YouTube channel or talk about my product one more time, you're probably just barely scratching the surface of how many people have heard you talk about your podcast, talk about your YouTube channel, talk about your product. Okay. I don't even know what the stats are today, but I remember, there was market research a few years ago that would say people have to see your stuff like 12 times before they even recognize it or they even commit it to memory. 12 times. I don't know what the numbers are today, but that still seems like so much content is coming at us that if you just say one time, oh, by the way, I'm launching my podcast, it's coming out on July 4th. That's the only marketing that you've done. It's not enough. It's not enough. And I told you today was going to be a therapy session. It's going to be a coaching session, but here we are. You cannot stop talking about it, even after it's launched. Here we are. I launched this podcast in 2018, and I have not stopped talking about it since. I have not. I still tell anybody that's like, oh yeah, I think I want a podcast. Oh, okay, you got to go listen to my podcast. It's about X, Y, and Z. This is the type of audience it can serve. And I keep talking about it. I just mentioned my book in today's episode. I keep talking about it. Do I talk about it all the time? No, I don't, because I don't think it's relevant to put into every single episode. But I launched it in 2020. It's 4 years later. I am still talking about it. So do not stop talking about the thing. Once you've created it, you have to feel comfortable making it about the product and the value that it can like really offer to your audience instead of making it about you. Because I think that's where people get really uncomfortable. They're like, Crystal, it feels braggy. It feels very selfish. I feel like I'm just putting all the spotlight on me. I don't want to talk about myself. Great. Don't talk about yourself. Talk about the value that your audience will get from listening to your podcast, from watching your YouTube videos, or from buying your digital product. That's what you should focus on. What is that value? What is the benefit that they're going to get from what you created, right? This is the thing that you have to focus on, because if you're not doing this, no one's going to do it for you. Let me repeat that. If you're not talking about your stuff and you're not marketing it, no one is going to do it for you. You have to do it first. You need to be the example. You need to be the best daggum marketer that your business has ever seen, right? You are the chief marketing officer of your podcast, of your YouTube channel, of your products, and you've got to get it out there and keep talking about it. So let's recap real fast. So building a product or a podcast or a content is like building a house. It may take some time, but there are ways for you to talk about it and promote it while you're in those building stages. Now I want to recap the 4 ways to market while you're building one more time. Share your behind the scenes, get your audience involved in the decision-making process, tell your audience how they can help you launch it, and don't stop talking about it. This was a fun episode. Like I said, this is not the first time we've covered this. I've covered this probably once or twice a year since we've launched. And I just love coming back to this because it's the same tried and true principles that we've taught here on the podcast for so long. And I still find them so relevant today. So I hope that you found value in today's episode, and I would love to hear from you. So actually, Buzzsprout has this fantastic new thing that I just enabled on the podcast that's called Send Us a Text Message. It is literally in the app where you were listening to this, if you're listening to the audio version. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, it says right at the top, send us a text message. I said it's called Send Us a Text Message. It's actually called Fan Mail. It's not called Send Us a Text Message. It's called Fan Mail, which I just had a conversation today with Albin, who's the head of marketing at Buzzsprout, and we just gushed over Fan Mail and all the incredible features that it has. So that is upcoming. We will give you all the dirt, all the details on Fan Mail, but send us a text message. I want to know what you thought about today's episode, and I may read your text message on a future episode because we actually did that live on the air in the episode that I recorded with Buzzsprout. So I would love to feature you on the show. So click the Send Us a Text Message link wherever you are watching and listening, and I would love to hear from you. But that's all I have for you today. So make sure you hit that subscribe, follow button wherever you're watching and listening to this today. Stay tuned for more content all about content creation. And as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners, thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Crystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal, it could be totally anonymous, or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Crystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of fan mail shout outs.